So hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel Java Guru Ravi, and I Ravi Khan Sahu welcome you in this new video. So let's get started. So hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel Java Guru Ravi, and today we are going to discuss the user defined exception. User defined exception is also called as custom exception. So in this case what we are going to discuss here is how to create some exceptions which are not predefined. Like we have discussed certain exceptions like arithmetic exception, number format exception, null pointer exception, IO exception, SQL exception. All these exceptions are predefined exceptions. But can we create our own exceptions? There are two reasons of creating the user defined exception. First reason is that some predefined exceptions are there which will be thrown on some predefined condition. Means if you are dividing by a 0 to any number, then it will throw the arithmetic exception. Similarly, if suppose I want to create my program and where I want to throw some exception on some of the customized condition, then what we will have to do? Because predefined exceptions will be thrown on the predefined conditions only, and they will be having their own behavior. So we are having this example here. Let's say I am creating some application where I am going to read the password from the user, and there are certain checks over there. So let's say I am saying okay, if the password length is less than 8, then there should be some exception. So in that case there is no predefined exception which will be thrown when the password length is less than 8. So what we have to do is, here we have to create the user defined exception. It may be also possible that you are throwing the predefined exception like arithmetic exception, number format exception, null format exception on user defined condition manually using the throw keyword. You can throw the predefined exceptions on your own condition also, but that will be the predefined exception only, and anybody who will get the exception, let's say you are getting an exception, arithmetic exception, then you will assume that the number is divided by 0. You will not assume that the password length is less than 10, right? So that's why although you can throw the predefined exception using the throw keyword, but we will be throwing custom exception or user defined exception on our own conditions. So let us understand how you create a user defined exception. User defined exception class creation is extremely easy. It is simple. You have to create a class, and that class must be inherited by some predefined exception class. For example, if you have created a class invalid number exception, so this will not be treated as an exception class. Just writing invalid number exception doesn't mean this is an exception class. How you will ensure that this is the exception class? You have to maintain the is a relationship, inheritance. I have already told you inheritance is used for code reusability, but more than 50% of the times we will be using inheritance for maintaining is a relationship. Earlier also you have seen that the classes must be maintaining the is a relationship. So here you can create a custom exception, any class which is a subclass of throwable. Any class which is a subclass of throwable will be considered as an exception, right? If you are writing a simple class invalid number exception, so it will not be treated as an exception. And when I say it is not treated as an exception, it means its object cannot be thrown using the throw keyword. Only the object of a class can be thrown using the throw keyword when it is throwable. It is a throwable class, right? Similarly, using the throws keyword, you can list only those classes which are subclasses of throwable. So if you will try to write this class name with the throws clause in the method header or constructor header, it will give you the compile time error, right? Similarly, if you will try to throw the object of this class, it will give you the compilation error. It will say no, invalid number exception is not throwable, right? So what you have to do is, if you have to create any user defined exception, so you have to simply inherit by any of the class in the exception hierarchy. You can inherit throwable, you can inherit exception, you can inherit error, you can inherit runtime exception also. So totally depends on you what type of exception you want to create. And when I say type, so there are two types we have discussed in the previous video: checked exception, unchecked exception. So if you want to create unchecked exception, so this class must be inherited by the runtime exception class. And if you will inherit it by throwable or exception, then it will become a checked exception. Right? So any subclass of unchecked exception is always unchecked, and any subclass of checked exception is always checked. If you inherit this class from IO exception class, so that is also possible. IO exception is a checked exception, so this one will also become a checked exception. If you will inherit it from the arithmetic exception, then this class will become unchecked exception. So it totally depends on you what kind of exception you want to create. So let's say I want to create a checked exception, so I will inherit it. I will write here extends, because all those exceptions are classes. So extends and what? Exception. Right? So you will have to inherit from this class exception. You can inherit from throwable also, or you can inherit from some other predefined class also. Right? So this is how you have created an exception. Now this is the necessary and sufficient condition to create a exception. Nothing else is required here. Just create a class which extends the throwable or exception or runtime exception or any other predefined exception class. Your class will become exception class. Right? Now its object can be thrown using the throw keyword. So let us come to this main program. Here I have created a class test, and let's say scanner object is created SC, although I have not written the code here, but scanner object is there SC, through which I am reading the password from the user at runtime. The SC.next will read some password, and I am storing into the pass variable here, the string type of variable pass. So what I want to write here is, I want to write a code that if the password length is less than 8, then the exception should be thrown. Right? So what I'll write here, the condition, I'll write if pass.length, because string class provides you the length method, if pass.length is less than 8. It means generally you know that the password length expected is minimum 8 characters. So let's say pass.length is less than 8. Fine. So here what I want to do, I want to throw the exception here. I want to throw the exception object here. So how you will throw? You will simply write this throw keyword. Throw keyword is used for explicit throwing of exception and rethrowing of exception objects. Right? So I am going to explicitly throw the object here. So what I will write? I will just write throw, and throw means you can throw the object of any class. So I can create the object of invalid number exception. So I will write here throw, and I will create an object new invalid number exception. So this is how I have created the object, and I have used the throw keyword to throw that object. Right? So this is very simple. You can throw the object of any class which is a subclass of throwable. If you remove from here extends exception, this will not compile. This will say sorry, this class is not a throwable type class. Right? Now what happened, if you see this code, so in this code, in this main function, you are having the chances of some checked exception. So again this code will not compile. This code will say that exception, here you have a checked exception, so you will have to apply. It will say there is unchecked exception, there is a checked exception that must be either caught or declared to be thrown. Right? So you have to handle this exception. because you have already seen that in case of checked exception, exception handling is compulsory. Compiler will force to handle this exception. But suppose I will inherit it with the runtime exception, so it will become an unchecked exception, then the compiler will not force you, right? So in this case it is a checked exception, so my compiler will force me that you need to handle this exception, right? So there are two ways of handling the exception, either provide the try catch finally or write throws clause here. So if you write the throws clause here, so compiler will say ki, okay, this exception should be handled by the caller. So he will say, okay, no issues, you can continue with the compilation process. So you are having both the choices. Let's say I want to handle the exception. So what I'll do here is, I'll put this statement inside the try block. I'll put it here, try, and close the try block. So in the try block we have written if password dot length is less than 8, so exception is thrown. Now try should be accompanied with the catch block for handling. So I'll be writing here catch, and here I can write invalid number exception EX, right? So this is how I have handled the exception. So now first thing you have done, you have prevented the abnormal termination of the program. Second thing is you can customize your message, and third thing is you can provide the plan B. So let us give some proper message. I'll give the message, okay, system.out.println kindly enter the password with minimum 8 characters, something like this. The user can easily understand what the problem is, right? Now because we are talking about the custom exception here, so there are two things which we can write inside the exception class. There you can write everything, but two things that are generally asked in the exams or the questions. So what are the two things? Let us understand. So when you are handling the exception, so in the catch block generally we can do three things. Generally you might have seen in the literature also that in the catch block they are doing something like this. Either they will be printing the exception, something like this, system.out.print exception object you are printing, or you can call ex.print stack trace. This is a method of the exception. And third thing is you can print ex.getMessage, right? So these are the three things that can be expected. So let us understand first of all what these three statements means, then we will try to implement the same in our class. So if you write print AX, it means you are printing the exception object which has been occurred in your program. So printing the exception object, this is the printing of exception object. So in Java there is a concept that is whenever you are printing any object of any class, forget about exception, any class object if you print, so it will be calling the toString method, right? So whatever is written in the toString method, the same output will be there. Like if you print the object of a normal class, so it prints the class name at the rate some hash code. If you print the object of a string class, it prints the content. If you print the object of some array list, it prints all the objects in the rectangular bracket separated by commas. So it is all about the implementation of toString method, right? So if you are not overriding the toString method in this class, so what is the general nature of the toString method in the exceptions? General nature of the toString method is, it is saying that I will print exception class name, it prints the exception class name, and if there is some message, so it will print the message here, right? So what is the general behavior of toString method in the exception class is class name followed by colon followed by message. If there is no message, it will just print the name of the class. If you recall, if you get the number format exception, so it does not print any message, it just says java.lang.number format exception. But when you get the arithmetic exception, so it gives you the message java.lang.arithmetic exception colon divide by 0. That divide by 0 is a message. Similarly, in the array index out of bounds, it gives you the message java.lang.array index out of bounds exception colon the index where the exception occurred. So that is message. So every exception class can have some message attribute. So first of all, we have to say that how to provide that message attribute. In my class, I cannot assign any message attribute, right? If you want to create some message for your exception class, so how you will do this? It can be done using the constructor, right? When you will be writing the constructor in the exception class, when you want to have some message in your exception class. So what is the simple logic of writing exception here is, write a constructor. I'll write here a constructor invalid number exception, right? Any constructor you can write, and using the super you can pass the message to the parent class. This is simple step. You write here super, and whatever message you want to pass, you can pass in the string form, something like this. Okay? For example, I want to say password length is less than 8. So I have given this message, right? So now if you print the object, now if you print here the object of this class, let's say I am printing here system.out.println ex. So what will be the output? What should be the output? If I am printing the exception object, what it will print? It will print class name first of all, invalid number exception colon the message password length is less than 8. This will be the output here. You can be asked in the MCQ also. You have been given an exception and you will be asked what will be the output. So here in this case the output will be, because I am printing the exception object. So first of all you will have to check, have you overridden the string toString method here? We have not overridden, so it will carry the toString method of the parent class, which says the name of the class followed by colon and message if there is some message. So it is not overriding here, so it will follow the same. So it will print invalid number exception, that is the name of the class. Is there any message? Yes, the colon and this message. So in this case output will be invalid number exception colon password length is less than 8. Right? Similarly, if I print here ex.getMessage, ex.getMessage, so getMessage method simply prints the message only. So what it will print? It will just print password length is less than 8. It will not print invalid number exception. Is it okay? So getMessage method will only print the message. If there is no message, it will print null. And if you print the exception object, it will print the details according to the toString method given by you. And if you have not given the toString method, it will print class name colon message. Right? Now suppose what I have done here is, I have overridden the toString method also. I will write here public string toString. So this is the syntax of toString method. You can override this toString method anywhere because it is defined in the object class. So every class gets this method here. and you have all the rights to override this method, right? String class has overridden, exception class is overriding this method, you can also override. So now this method says ki whatever you will return, you can see here the toString method is having a return type string. Whatever you will return from this toString method, the same thing will be printed when you will print the object of the class. Whatever you will return. So by default the toString method of exception class is saying class name colon message. This is what they are returning. I want to change it, I will override the toString method. Let's say I want to print here, I will return Java Guru. Now the question is, if I write here exception, invalid number exception, and suppose exception occurred, ex dot get message, what will be the output? Ex dot get message, what will be the output? Get message method will always print the message. What is the message here? Password length is less than 8. So it will print the message only because I am printing here ex dot get message. But suppose I am printing here ex. It means now I am printing the exception object. So what it will print? It will print according to the toString method. What toString method is returning? Java Guru. So now it will print Java Guru only. Right? If I remove the toString method here, now what it will print? It will print no toString method, means parent class definition, invalid number exception, colon message. So this is all about the user defined exceptions. Again, you can create a user defined exception by simply creating a class which inherits some predefined exception hierarchy class. Is it a checked exception or unchecked exception? If it is subclass of runtime exception, then it is unchecked exception, otherwise it will become a checked exception. When you will be writing the constructor in your custom exception class, when you want to have some message attribute over there in your exception. If you don't want to have a message, you need not to write a constructor. When you will override the toString method, when you feel that some other message should be printed when the exception object is printed, then you can return something from the toString method. Otherwise, class name followed by colon followed by message will be by default printed in the exception objects. So that's all about the custom exceptions. Thank you so much. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you find this video useful, so please like, subscribe and share with all of your friends so that they can also get benefited. Ravikant Sahu signing off. Thank you.